Welcome to Tech for Founders podcast. I'm your host, Panida, and today we have an extraordinary guest joining us, Stefan Repin. With a decade of experience as a marketer and an entrepreneur, Stefan is a master of go-to-market strategies, account-based marketing, and demand generation. In this episode, we'll uncover the secrets behind marketing success, explore the challenges that non-technical founders face, and discover actionable tips to drive growth and outshine the competition. Can you share your journey as a marketer and entrepreneur and how you discovered the power of go-to-market strategies, account-based marketing, and demand generation?
Cool. Hey, Panida, thank you for the intro. Yeah, I wouldn't do it better than you did. Yeah, so many. Sometimes with time you forget like how many things you do. So actually, my family is quite entrepreneurial. So I started with business quite at an early age, at the age of 12 actually. I had work after hours, after school. Then the whole summer would be basically work. So we had multiple companies that we owned, and that's where I started to learn business. That's where all these like go-to-market strategy, account-based, and demand generation started to sort of take shape. My first sort of account-based marketing experience was when I finished my college, like university here in Europe. I was head of marketing and sales for a company. It was a wine company, and we realized pretty very soon that by targeting everyone, we would not be successful. So we realized that, okay, what would be if we sort of take a not a one-to-many, but one-to-one approach? And that's how we started targeting companies in a certain, actually wine distributors in a certain in a certain country. It was Belarus at that time, or Belarus, you can call it. Um, because we had a targeted approach, it worked very well. And at that time, I didn't actually know about all of these programmatic ads, all of these technological advancements, which are sort of like funky or which are like cool to use nowadays, right? Back then, it was all sort of old school. You could send them a letter, you could go on a road show, you could go on a road trip, meet them in person, take them to dinners, and so on and on and on, right? And that's what we did. It was very simple. We did a list of companies that we were interested in. We sent them a case of wine uh, for to check out. Like, hey, look, this is an act of goodwill. Um, we produced the wine. Like, why don't you guys taste it and tell us what they think? Um, some of them tasted the wine. Someone didn't actually. I think they sold the wine. We had one interesting case, but basically we got 5 accounts, and then we went on a road trip, and we went on a road trip to that country, and we out of that we got 2 contracts actually, and the contracts were something around $50,000 at the time. It was 2011, 2012. It was considerable, considering considering how much money we spent on this whole outreach in wine, and this gift and direct mail. I think um, it was a good example of ABM before ABM maybe was crowned as ABM. Is it a good? Did I answer your question about market strategies based, go to market, account based?
Yes, definitely. You answered in terms of how you came to become a marketer and entrepreneur. And I think it's very clear that you've had a good family upbringing in terms of having business people all around you. So you've started really early in your journey at the age of 12, and then you learn marketing in an old school way first with wine and knowing how to be close to customers and everything. And I'm very excited to continue to hear your journey about how you implement technology with this.
Awesome, sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, nowadays people like especially marketers, they don't really they talk to sales, they do talk to sales, they do talk to customers, but they're all in this that you have sort of a bubble where marketers have their own language, MQLs and so on. Sounds very complicated, and usually, they use some sort of account-based software where they load the context, they get the data from ZoomInfo or any other like provider, and they basically send. And these tools are not cheap, like maybe maybe no, but like the data could be anywhere from 20K to, I don't know, infinite a year, $20,000 a year. And your tool, which will serve ads to your audience, could be also very expensive. Could be maybe $30,000-$40,000 a year. So it's quite expensive, and I assume non-technical founders or like SMBs can't really they don't really have the budget, but you don't really have the means to do that either. So my basically my proposal for them is like to connect marketing and sales and do it like old school, old style, as it always works if you put the right pilots, if you put the right metrics, it always works. We can go to the next question if you have more.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. These kind of software are really expensive. And I think your advice on going old school in terms of finding your first customers by yourself first is good advice. So we will move on to the next question. How can non-technical founders effectively implement go-to-market strategies to establish their brand presence and drive growth?
Sure. Non-technical, you mean like someone who doesn't know how to code, or non-technical? What do you mean by the definition of
By
non-technical?
non-technical, someone who doesn't know how to code.
Okay, yes. Well, that's me. If you don't count HTML, CSS, I know how to code a little bit. But I have a wonderful helper, ChatGPT. So yeah, nowadays, even if you're non-technical with ChatGPT, you can become sort of technical. Okay, what are my challenges? As I said, so challenges. So I'm working a lot with SMBs. I work with enterprise a little bit, but mostly with SMBs. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of them, first of all, they listen to the wrong advice. They listen to the wrong advice when it comes to like sales playbooks that they've heard that were written for enterprise. That does not work for small enterprises or even mid-sized enterprises, because as we just mentioned, loading a bunch of contacts, loading a bunch of data into a programmatic ad solution and serving ads, and then saying, oh, look, there's an inbound lead. We served them 50,000 worth of ads this year, and we got a contract 150,000. Look at this ROI. It's a very long game, and sort of like it doesn't. I I I would say it doesn't really work for SMBs. I would say in my experience, especially when it comes to complicated sales cycles, you really need to go on and meet your customers like in person, because it will give you that amount of proof, amount of trust that others will not give. Imagine yourself like you are potentially choosing between 3 or 4 vendors, right, for your product, because that's what SMBs are doing. And then you have the offer is maybe the same for more or less the same, the offers, because that's what I'm seeing in B2B. The offers are more or less the same, like table stakes, but the approach, who is willing to go the extra mile, that what basically can differentiate you. What I mean by that, like, again, I just came from a road trip. We had a road trip in the Philippines where we went to a conference and we visited 6, 7 potential customers. Again, you need to understand none of them signed a contract yet, but it was an act of goodwill. And okay, maybe you spend 5, 7, 10K on this trip, right, for several people. But the amount of trust you are able to build with the buyer decision committee in those companies, and the amount of sort of personal level connections, exchanging gifts, exchanging smiles, is, you can't put a price tag on it. And I would say, again, I don't want to disclose the name of the company, but out of the meetings we had, maybe 50% were closing some pilots on those. So it was quite efficient. It's very important to have someone working the fields as well as, okay, digital is important, but you need to also work the fields with your sales representatives. So I kind of went, I think, adrift a little bit. So like key challenges more. Again, let's go back. Advice that is written for corporations will not work for SMBs. You're doing it wrong. Second, a lot of companies nowadays, there is the model which was written by the. So there is this book called Predictable Revenue. It was written by the founder of one of the people who started Salesforce. No, sorry, he was a salesman at Salesforce, one of the first people. And a lot of companies, they use their SDRs to create motion, basically, which is a game of numbers. Oh, like I'll hire 5 SDRs, and without any onboarding, I'll give them the product, let them sort of like go into go internet, and then try to sell. And what happens is that none of them are successful. You basically prepare them for failure, and none of them like sell. Now, it's important for SMBs to understand that nowadays the business and the go-to-market strategy is very much, even like actual demand generation is very much driven by education. So your goal is to educate your customers first. That's why like events such as like, lunch and learn dinners, which can be hybrid events, different webinars, can be a differentiator for your market, and that's where your SDRs have to rise and shine. Okay, so that's the second mistake I'm seeing very often, that people are following the predictable revenue model, which used to work in the 2000s. It's not 2000s anymore. Everything is sort of very equal. How can you overcome these challenges? Maybe I'll give you a bit more. I'll give you a bit more here. Well, first of all, hire SDR. When you hire an SDR, sales development representative, or a business development representative, don't be cheap. Hire someone who has a little bit of a network, and who can build, or who is quite outgoing and can build a network, right? Because network is your net worth, right? So if you hire someone with at least the experience of building a network in this industry, it's going to be much easier for you to close, at least initially, a few contacts. And once you have those 2-3 closure, it will give you momentum, so you will be able to build on that, and then prospect more, basically enlarge your funnel, make it bigger, right? What other key challenges? And when it comes to advice, there is like a bunch of people who basically write for SMBs, and I am one, for example. I offer free consulting within Luck Boosters. My partner, Liz, she's Canadian. She's also worked for SMBs and enterprise, so she knows sales very well. There is Full Funnel, Andrei Zinkiewicz, great guy, great materials. There is also Peplaya. Again, this guy is how good this guy is when it comes to product marketing and driving your message. Very, very good. There's like, reach out to me, and I'll send you a list of profiles you can follow and learn sales and marketing if you're SMB and you want to do it efficiently, not like an enterprise.
This is very good advice. So mainly you advise to hire someone who can build a good network, and also always going the extra mile, like going to see your customers in the Philippines and taking that trip and getting to know them and educating them about the product. So I think this is very good advice, especially in this, like, because I think a lot of small companies, they get a lot of advice about, hey, use this new tech tool, use this, and they end up spending a lot of money on things that aren't going to get them customers, or might not be able to at the moment because it doesn't suit them.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, they people get overloaded with tools, and they focus on personalization. Again, first name, hello Panida, I saw you are a part of I saw you have a podcast. Is not personalization. That's bullshit. Okay. What actually works is relevancy, right? So figuring out what would be some relevant information for you. Like maybe you need help with booking more guests, more cool, awesome guests. That would be something relevant, I guess. I have to ask you, right? What is relevant? But I have to be in your shoes to give you some useful information. So don't focus on the tools, focus on the end goal, start with the end in mind, they say.
Definitely. So can you share a success story where the implementation of go-to-market strategies, account-based marketing, or demand generation has led to remarkable success for a business?
Yeah, of course. I have many. I mean, I have many, right? So I've worked across many industries. One success we had was as working in a collaboration with Full Funnel, and we were working with a drone company. They were doing software for drones and aviation too. So we were thinking about how to raise awareness about the software because like drones do have drones are very like a very sort of specific niche market, and companies like ours, it was also an SMB. So we're thinking about what can we do to target these companies who are like doing mining, who are doing construction, because they use a lot of drones. And we figured out that by launching a podcast, it would be a good idea to this way we can connect to founders, actually understand what their pain is, what are the issues they have, and sort of like do sort of validate our go-to-market strategy, and see if actually we if we can reach product market fit. And that's what we did. We started a series of podcasts, and we did actually a virtual summit, targeting drone companies who operate drones. And it was pretty like it was very much on a budget. I think maybe we spent not gonna under 10K, like I don't know, $5,000-7,000 on this podcast throughout 4 months, and we landed 80,000-90,000 euro in revenue. So it was 8 times the ROI. It was basically the idea behind was to build like a pipeline of people who potentially maybe they're not interested now, but then they can maybe buy our solution later on. So the podcast went terrifically well. It went very well. I have like other examples. For example, I worked with a app development company, and we were thinking basically there's like competition is very high in this industry, especially now, because everyone tries to I personally get maybe 5 to 10 emails a week from people trying to offer me app development services. Like, do you need an outsourced team? So what we did is basically, first of all, we went with the media approach. So the CEO of the company, we put him on Forbes Tech Council. We put him on different, I would say, thought leadership platforms, like not Fortune 500, on TechCrunch. We put him everywhere where his tech sort of subject matter expertise would be useful. That's where we put him, and then people would see that he has the experience. Number two, what we did is we targeted with our case studies and our again with our experience, we targeted health tech because they had a lot of experience in health tech, and we published in 2 journals related to health tech, where we shared about our experience, like implementation of IoT in health tech. It worked very well. We from that journal alone, I'm not talking about other sources. From that journal alone, we made, I'd say, $50,000 or $60,000, because we tracked back our sources, the sources of it was an inbound. Those were inbound leads that were coming. So that was really helpful. Another part was we did an ABM strategy where we sort of targeted. It was a user experience conference, and we targeted the speakers of the conference. We targeted them on LinkedIn, basically, where we sort of congratulated them for their successes and for their great projects and products they're working on. And also the CEO of the company, we put him we put him as a speaker for the conference for this award. And it worked very well, actually, because he, besides the LinkedIn messages and the LinkedIn posts where we sort of like scratched their back, he was able to connect with them personally, and worked like amazingly well. I would say all over through these efforts, we landed around $2,000-3,000 in $200-300 in revenue, and even more in pipeline. Of course, I mean, we could have made it much bigger, but I had some limitations since the budget is not infinite.
Definitely. This is all very impressive because I think what you've done with these companies is that you really niche down and you didn't try to target everyone. You went into that specific industry, and especially for app development, it's very competitive. And I think the fact that you went into health tech is very useful because it's completely related to the company's past experience and making sure you don't end up targeting everyone.
Yeah, look, if you want to win, you gotta bring your A game, right? So plus, as I said, I'm a big lover of face-to-face. Like, I'm a big lover of face-to-face meetings because they actually work. So if you know how to deliver, then you should definitely connect. You should definitely have a hybrid approach.
Definitely. So what role does content marketing play in go-to-market strategies, account-based marketing, and demand generation? And how can non-technical founders create engaging and impactful content?
Well, I'll give you some cringe advice, which is like listen to your customer. But look, I'll tell you this. Very often, I'll start from the very basics. When you create content, you create the content not for yourself. You create the content for your customers. And meaning like listen to your customers. Many founders, in my experience, are very like they have a sort of they're afraid of their customers. What do I mean by that? Imagine that you have a product and you deliver the product, the customer paid for a year and for a year ahead for the let's say for the subscription, and maybe month 9 or 10 you start talking to them about a renewal, right? Where you find out that, well, they're not that interested in the renewal because that the product has bugs here, there, and there, and there. And that happens because you don't talk to your customers enough. Meaning, you talk to people who are using the product, but you're not talking to the decision makers. So your head of customer support or whoever is your customer success, you need to keep these people engaged all the time. If someone bought from you, doesn't mean that you have to forget and then lose them. It means that you have to continuously nurture the relationship, right? I'll give you an example from a dating world. Like, if your partner went for the first and second date, you're not just going to stop messaging them just because because he or she is in your pocket. You want to continue building the relationship, right? That the same works in business. It's no different. Now, I drifted a bit. I'm gonna answer your question now. What I'm seeing is that businesses, and especially founders or like people who are landing a customer, they're afraid to ask the right questions. Which is, for example, once you land the customer, usually what I do, I run a customer interview while it's fresh, which goes into details like who you were considering us against, why did you choose us, which is like a bit cringy. You're like, you have to be a bit brave to ask these questions, right? Because it's like a bit icky, right? So you have to ask these questions. Why did they consider? Who else did they consider? Why did they lose the competition? What else? Who else? What other factors influenced them? Who else took the decision? Why do you think they opted for us and not the competitor? This is all very important, like, because you will have sometimes objective / subjective reasons why they chose you. And that'll help you create like content, because if you know who your competitors are and what their weak spots are, then you can use that in your content. And basically, once you run a customer research through giving them icky questions, you can do a content plan, which would be in B2B. There is the concept of map of informational needs. So what sort of information does your customer need to take a decision? Like, could be comparison pages, could be maybe like certain features that are that they want and they are unavailable on the market and they would like them to have implemented. Basically, like, it's just like it's sort of like will come out of your discussions with their customers. Just don't shy away from talking to them, And even if it's like, don't try to debrief, even if it's bad news and they say, well, we want to stop the subscription, or you're hearing some bad feedback. You don't you shouldn't shy away from asking them why. And they'll give you the way to writing the content. Now, first of all, when you start doing your content for when it comes to go-to-market strategy, when it comes to any sort of content you wish that your readers, aka future customers, will read, you should opt in for bottom of funnel content. Marketing words bottom of funnel. It's like something that's out there which will actually help you close customers who are very close to making a decision, right? Like, in my experience, that could be a comparison page, that could be a features page, that could be again comparison. I said that could be maybe a consultation on integrations, or a free consultation on extensions, or maybe like, do you work with this ERP, or do you work with that ERP? Are you able to integrate with our other solutions, and you get a stack, right? Of course, I'm not even talking about case studies or reviews, referrals. Those are the alma mater, and you should have them by default. Another example should be making examples of pilots that you could run, because now, like, if you want a lot of playing B2B, I see a lot of pilots, and people push for the, like, oh, let's push like sharky salespeople, like people who are very aggressive. They try to sell a license right away without testing the product in the pilot, and it ends with a disaster. It ends very often with a disaster. They get their sales commission, but in the end, nobody wins, because your customer will get a bad product, which is not fit, which they don't really want. You will get a customer who's going to be, well, they're going to be unsuccessful, and they'll spread the news. And believe me, in B2B, news spread very, very fast, because everyone knows everyone. If I want to buy if I want to buy Martech software, I know that if I'm not going to HubSpot, I'll go to Pipedrive. The same goes in every industry when it comes to B2B. So there are always alternatives. So your reputation is your everything, I would say.
Absolutely. I think what your advice about talking to users and making that a part of your content strategy is very interesting, because I think a lot in the tech industry, talking to users means you go and improve your features. But I think having that play into your content strategy can be incredibly helpful, especially in pinpointing the pain points of the customers. And also with what you said about B2B and making sure that you don't push out bad products just because you really need to sell, but making sure that the customers are happy, because that reputation it plays out in the long run.
Yeah, don't believe me wrong. Like, we've sold a lot of like raw products, which, that's the case. You don't have a like ready product. You're sort of you're fitting it to the glove to your customer, and that's happened a lot of when you work with enterprise, because no product can satisfy a customer in enterprise right away. They usually all want customizations, but it's about your willingness to fit to their requirements. And questions asked, your customer will never be 100% happy. You have to be ready for that. It's just how much can you push their happiness level.
Definitely. So could you provide insights on how non-technical founders can measure the effectiveness of their marketing efforts and make data-driven decisions?
Someone asked me recently a question like, when things go bad, who gets the cut? And I was like, well, it's sales. And then she said, no, it's marketing, actually. And I agree. Like, first, when pardon my French, shit hits the fan, you get the brand expenses cut first, and maybe at the same time you get some salespeople fired. I would say you could measure it by different ways. Like, of course, you have the money in your bank, right? But considering that your sales cycles are not 1 month and not 3 weeks and not 2 months, there could be very long. I would say you could opt out. You could opt in for pilots. How many pilots have you sold? How much money? How good is the pipeline? Basically the only metric that I've found being very, very the most efficient, I would say, for sales and marketing together is like how good is your pipeline? Like, even if you can't close, even if like companies are not ready to close, how many leads do you have in your pipeline and how ready are they? What's the stage? Again, you have a sales velocity, sales pipeline velocity, like how fast basically do companies move through your sales cycle, and how can you decrease that sales cycle? That's an interesting metric that actually marketing should own, but I'm seeing sales own it as well. What else do you have? Of course, you have MQLs, SQLs, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, opportunities. It depends from case to case what sort of definitions you have and how do you define a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. But I think the more attention you give. So if your pipeline is good, the more attention you give to these very tiny moments, tiny segments in what moves one deal from being like nobody, or like maybe like an MQL to an SQL. That's basically where I'm seeing a lot of conversion cracks. So like I'm seeing a lot of cracks in between MQLs and SQLs. And I think one way to figure that out is to understand what's moving the needle, what's in your customer's head. And I think for me as a marketer, I actually do also sales, a lot of sales as a founder too. It's very important that marketing can also go on those sales calls and actually go and see the customer, because that's how, if they talk to the customer, like let's say you get a meeting with 5 or 10 or 11 people and you meet them in a semi unofficial atmosphere, like in a Starbucks or something, you won't be able to put that on paper, but like marketers and founders will be able to figure out what are those unsaid things which you cannot sort of quantify, which can move the deal forward. Maybe again, it's up for grabs here. It's up for consideration for every one of us, but not always you can all put in data and numbers, especially if it's B2B. You can have maybe like 10 you can have maybe 10 deals, and that's going to be your pipeline for the whole year, right?
Definitely. I think your advice on that, the unsaid thing that is able to close the deal faster, it plays it with your entire strategy of making sure that we talk to customers and really get to know what is in their head and why the deal hasn't closed yet and what would make it close faster. So I think this is great advice, especially for non-technical founders who are leveraging technology, but they also have to make sure that they have that human touch and go and talk to people, talk to your customers. So thank you very much for joining me today. We are wrapping up. So thanks for your expertise.
Thank you very much. If you guys are looking to visit those sources that I quoted, you can message me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Stefan Repin, STEFAN REPIN, and connect with me, and I'll send you any sort of help you need, or we can book a free consultation.
Perfect. Thank you so much.